What if the top officials of your country's most trusted agencies were working for the enemy? What happens when a spy network shakes your entire security to its core? Meet the Cambridge Five, the world's most notorious double agents.
The 1930s were a time of great upheaval for Britain. The economy was severely shaken by the Great Depression. Unemployment was rising, and people were beginning to question the capitalist system. Meanwhile, fascism and Nazism were spreading rapidly across Europe, while the Soviet Union emerged as the prominent face of communism. Many young Britons saw communism as a just and egalitarian system. They believed the Soviet model offered a solution to the flaws of capitalism. This mindset would later sow the seeds for a secret espionage network in Britain. At the same time, Cambridge University was a hub for some of Britain's brightest and most influential minds. Students there were deeply engaged not only in academics, but also in political and social issues. During the 1930s, leftist ideas began gaining influence at Cambridge. It was common in debates to criticize capitalism and praise socialism and communism. Many students spoke out against the plight of workers, the gap between rich and poor, and the rise of fascism in Europe. Some of these students would later become key members of the Soviet espionage network. For them, it wasn't just politics. It was also a belief that they were working to make the world a better place. At the same time, Soviet intelligence agencies, especially the NKVD, which later became the KGB, were expanding their networks worldwide. Britain was particularly important to them, as it offered access to European and American intelligence systems. Their strategy was clear: recruit talented young individuals who could later reach high positions of power in Britain. Prestigious institutions like Cambridge were prime targets. Here, they could find idealistic students who were politically engaged and eager for change. These students were gradually shaped through ideology, excitement, and a sense of moral duty. This approach ultimately laid the foundation for networks such as the Cambridge Five.
Harold Kim Philby is considered the most infamous and dangerous member of the Cambridge Five. He was intelligent, charismatic, and ambitious. Philby rose to a high-ranking position in Britain's intelligence agency, MI6, and during World War II had direct access to many major operations. This made him the Soviets' most valuable asset. Philby didn't just pass on Britain's secrets. He also provided the Soviets with information about CIA and other Western intelligence operations. His identity as a double agent was so well concealed that MI6 didn't suspect him for years. His cunning and networking elevated the Cambridge Five to new heights and earned him the title of the Soviets' Golden Boy. Guy Burgess was the most colorful and unpredictable member of the Cambridge Five. Brilliant yet rebellious by nature, he led a chaotic and controversial personal life. Working at the British Foreign Office and the BBC, he gained access to numerous classified documents. Burgess had a nonconformist style and frequently defied societal norms, yet he possessed an extraordinary charm that drew people to him. His loyalty to the Soviets was driven not only by ideology, but also by the thrill and allure of danger. While his reckless habits occasionally caused problems for the Cambridge Five, his commitment to the Soviets remained unwavering. Donald Maclean was the Cambridge Five member who provided the Soviets with highly sensitive diplomatic intelligence. He held a senior position in Britain's Foreign Office, giving him direct access to US-UK nuclear agreements and NATO strategies. Maclean was serious-minded and deeply committed to his ideological beliefs. A staunch believer in communism, he saw himself as part of the fight against capitalism. During World War II and the early Cold War, he supplied the Soviets with information that significantly impacted the balance of power. His contributions were critical to the Cambridge Five's success. Anthony Blunt was an art historian with access to the British royal family.
His charisma allowed him to move effortlessly in elite social and political circles. While working at MI5, Blunt passed on crucial intelligence to the Soviets. His double life, art on one hand, espionage on the other, remained hidden for years. When his identity was revealed in 1979, it caused a major scandal in Britain's royal and political circles.
John Cairncross was the least well-known but highly significant member of the Cambridge Five. He worked in the Treasury and later in British intelligence, giving him access to confidential documents. His calm, introverted nature allowed him to evade suspicion for a long time. Cairncross provided the Soviets with critical information related to scientific and military technology, including data on nuclear projects. His role demonstrates that the Cambridge Five were not just a thrilling story, but a deeply entrenched and meticulously organized network. In the 1930s, Soviet intelligence agencies worked on a carefully crafted plan. Their goal was to identify clever and ambitious individuals who could eventually rise to high positions within British power structures. Interestingly, they did not rely on money or material temptations. Instead, they targeted people's thoughts and emotions. Young individuals who were idealistic, frustrated with the inequalities of capitalism, and dreamed of making the world a better place were chosen. Recruiters would first befriend these individuals, understand their ideology, and gradually convince them that communism was the path to saving the world. Trust and secrecy were of utmost importance, so that recruits felt they were not committing a crime, but fulfilling a moral responsibility. In recruiting the Cambridge Five, the Soviets exploited the idealism of young people. At that time, many students saw fascism and capitalism as the greatest threats to the world. For them, the Soviet Union represented the only hope. Recruiters tapped into this mindset, framing the act of sharing information not as betrayal, but as a service to humanity. Many began to see themselves as part of a fight against fascism. This is why most members of the Cambridge Five spied not for money, but out of ideology and a desire to change the world. Cambridge University was an ideal recruiting ground for Soviet agents. Its students belonged to the British elite and had high prospects of occupying influential positions in the future. Recruiters built a secret network at Cambridge, operating through debates, social gatherings, and discussions.
During World War II, Britain had significantly strengthened and organized its intelligence apparatus. In response to the German threat, the power of MI5 and MI6 was multiplied many times over. At the same time, code-breaking centers like Bletchley Park were established, where secret German military messages were decoded. British agencies were not only monitoring Germany, but also sharing intelligence with allies, such as the United States. In this environment, members of the Cambridge Five rose to high positions, gaining access to sensitive information that could potentially alter the course of the war. It was an extremely delicate period. Being caught spying could mean total ruin, but Soviet agents turned it into a major opportunity for themselves. During the war, the Cambridge Five provided the Soviet Union with highly critical intelligence. This included Britain's war plans, German military movements, and even the combined strategies of the Allied powers. Donald Maclean passed confidential files from American and British negotiations, while Kim Philby shared MI6's internal strategies and agent network information. John Cairncross delivered decoded German messages from Bletchley Park to the Soviets. Over time, shadows of suspicion began to fall over the Cambridge Five. After the end of World War II, as the Cold War heated up, Western intelligence agencies started closely monitoring Soviet espionage networks. The first major suspicion fell on Donald Maclean when secret diplomatic documents from Britain and the United States repeatedly made their way to the Soviets. Decrypted Venona messages clearly indicated that a major Soviet agent was active within the British government. MI5 began covert surveillance of Maclean, but to avoid a political scandal, the investigation was conducted with extreme caution. During this period, Guy Burgess also came under suspicion, though MI5 still lacked concrete evidence. The slow pace of the investigation, combined with political pressures,
gave the Cambridge Five the time they needed. Just as MI5 was preparing to interrogate McLean, a dramatic turn occurred. Burgess passed information obtained from inside MI5 to McLean. Together they planned their escape and suddenly disappeared in 1951. This was a major blow to the British intelligence apparatus. Two primary suspects had reached Soviet territory without obstruction. Their flight also put Kim Philby in a dangerous position, as his association with Burgess had become widely known. Although Philby managed to protect himself immediately and spent many years proving his innocence, the web of suspicion around him steadily tightened.
The most shocking twist in the story of the Cambridge Five came when it was revealed that one of these spies was extremely close to the British royal family. Anthony Blunt, a respected art historian, a trusted confidant of Queen Elizabeth II, and the surveyor of the Queen's pictures, his job was to care for the royal art collection, and he moved freely within the inner circles of the palace. No one could have imagined that this quiet, polite, and art-loving man had been a double agent for the Soviets for years. Blunt's double life made it clear that the reach of the Cambridge Five extended not only into intelligence agencies, but all the way to the highest levels of British power. MI5 had gathered evidence of Blunt's betrayal back in the 1960s, but it was kept secret because if the news got out, it would deeply tarnish the royal family's reputation. However, in 1979, when Margaret Thatcher became Prime Minister, she refused to keep the secret. In Parliament, she announced that Anthony Blunt was part of the Cambridge Five and had been spying for the Soviets. The statement hit British politics like a bombshell. The media erupted, the public was outraged, and people questioned how a traitor had managed to evade punishment for so many years. As a result, Blunt was stripped of his royal honors and his reputation was completely destroyed. The revelation shook the royal household. The fact that someone so close to the Queen turned out to be a Soviet agent was a severe blow to the image of the British monarchy.
Soviet intelligence documents and numerous historians believe that these five individuals gave the USSR the edge that reshaped the early picture of the Cold War. Thanks to Philby, the secrets of MI6 and the CIA flowed directly to Moscow. McLean's diplomatic reports provided the Soviets with a full view of Western plans, and Cairncross brought decrypted codes from Bletchley Park, sharpening Soviet strategy. This intelligence wasn't limited to paper alone. It reverberated in decisive battles like Stalingrad and later proved invaluable in strengthening Soviet control over Eastern Europe. That's why, even today, the Cambridge Five are called Red Heroes in Moscow. Yes, their personal lives were shadowed by constant surveillance and distrust, but to the Soviets, they were always heroes.